Carcassonne. Mi nombre es Joaquín y esto es Meeple Podcast. Hello, you're welcome to Meeple Podcast. This funny show talks about Carcassonne's game and sometimes give you many surprises, like today. With us, someone very famous on BGA side, someone you know, but not someone you know the nickname. Perhaps someone that has a lucky rabbit close to himself. Rain of rabbits, but it isn't rabbit rain. In any case, he is a very analyzer player, like Nocebo, but he is not Nocebo. Our protagonist lives in UK, and he could to have written a book of Carcassonne, but he is not Dan Shard, not even Steve D. He is a high player, great person, incredible streamer and YouTuber of Carcassonne. Alexey, thank you for accept the invitation to Meeple Podcast.
Hi Joaquin, hi everyone who is listening to this. Thank you for the generous introduction. Para mí es un placer estar aquí.
Muchas gracias. The winner of Season 8 of Arena Competition. You are.
I think so, yes.
Alexey LV. It's LV Latvia.
LV does stand for Latvia, but I added these letters only because the screen name Alexey was already taken. Actually, I've put considerable thought into my screen name. I decided to use my real first name to contribute to the growing seriousness of Carcassonne as a mind sport. But I didn't include my last name, not because it's any secret or anything. My last name is Pegushev, as some of you might know, but because I wanted to keep the screen name fairly short and not overly formal. So that's how Alexey became Alexey LV, really.
Everybody knows that France is a great touristic country and Spain is a touristic one, but sunny too. Germany has a high power, like England, and there are many famous cities in all of these countries, but many people are known Latvia. What would you highlight from your country? What may be the focus on in Latvia? Landscapes, monuments, history, people?
So I'll assume that most of your listeners haven't been to Latvia, so I'm going to give you a quick introduction. Here are the main things you'd need to know. Latvia, or Letonia in Espanol, is a young country just over 30 years old since regaining independence. Not to be confused with Lithuania, its neighbor, but we don't get offended when the two countries do get confused, because Latvia and Lithuania are quite friendly with each other, but they're not the same country. There are a lot of forests in Latvia. There's a forest in walking distance from most populated areas, so lots of nature. Culturally, Latvia is in both Eastern and Northern Europe, and culture, arts, and music, so these kind of things are strongly prioritized by both people and the government. This especially applies to singing. There's a massive, long-standing choral tradition and an opera tradition. So if you happen to know somebody famous from Latvia, chances are they're a singer or some kind of other musician, maybe a conductor. So yeah, if you go to Latvia, to sum up, expect lots of forests, old buildings, and singing. And, of course, lots of introverted people.
Mm-hmm. Alexey is a very interesting man, not only by his game level, but because he's a nice guy, always ready to talk with each other. You have many friends in that online site that we all know about. Also, you have fun sharing your knowledge through your channel on YouTube. What would what but who is actually Alexey Pegushev?
Who is Alexey Pegushev? This question feels like it needs a deep philosophical answer. But for now, let me keep the definition of who I am to what I do. Among a few other things, I'm a composer, musician, pianist, linguist, teacher, and now apparently a mind sports athlete and commentator, which is a label I'll quite happily carry forward with some sort of positive emotion. I've lived in many European countries, most recently and currently in the UK, and now I'm the captain of the Latvian national Carcassonne team, just from a distance.
Mhm. Last January 1st, 2022, I contact you with a BGA message in order to ask you for advices for my Carcassonne project that includes this podcast. You talked to me about the convenience of creating a YouTube or Twitch channel focused in four categories: game analysis, Carcassonne puzzles, live coverage or tournament matches, games with viewers or commenting whilst playing oneself. Talk to us about that. Say what kind of it is your favorite and what is the best option by the audience nowadays.
Well, it's hard to pick, but my personal favorites and the viewers' favorites seem to be puzzles. Puzzles are a common and productive way of learning in other mind sports, most notably chess. My goal is to make puzzles just as widespread in competitive Carcassonne learning as they are in chess learning. They allow our video viewers to actively participate if they wish. Yeah, so that's why I like puzzles. However, full game analyses seem to be a close second in popularity. At first, I wasn't sure. I thought there wouldn't be much interest because of the length. So some of my game analysis videos are over 40 minutes long. But it turned out to be not much of a problem. So my most viewed video on the channel to date is over 30 minutes long, actually. It's a video analyzing the final game of the 2021 World Team Carcassonne Online Championships. So these kind of analysis videos require a lot of editing work, so I can make them only every so often. But when complete, they definitely feel like something worth doing. Because in this format, it is possible to discuss not only tactics, so tactics being finding the best move in a given situation, but also strategy. Strategy being taking long-term decisions and predicting their consequences, 20, 30, 40 moves from now. On the other hand, gameplay with commentary is the least time-consuming type of content to create because it doesn't require editing or requires minimum editing. And it also allows for more informal, less technical commentary that creates a relaxed atmosphere. So I was happy to see that there is some interest in this format as well. So my plan going forward really is to keep everything balanced and diversified. Sometimes I make these kind of videos, sometimes I make these kind of videos, and so on. The next step would be possibly to diversify even further by adding general strategy videos without focus on any particular game. So there's two videos in particular I've been promising my viewers for ages. A video about counting tiles and another one about probabilities. And they are coming, they just take longer to make than regular videos, and I'm still figuring out how to film properly in this new format.
Alexey, the the eternity question: how to improve our Carcassonne game level? Your YouTube channel has many followers who want to grow as expert players. How did you do without any channel to learn?
Well, without any channel to learn, so I guess let us take back over 10 years ago. I learned the game in 2010, just as part of regular board game nights. Then I found that it's possible to play competitively. I didn't even know that it was a thing. So I played my first national championship in 2011, and I played my first world championship in 2013. So that was all a long time ago. And back then, there were not many resources available. And I had to learn many things from scratch, just really from trial and error. A lot of that came from simply thinking or moving tiles around, counting out a few basic probabilities on paper. Later, some more advanced situations with the help of my mathematician friend, who was then a mathematics student at a university. So just really a collection of small things like this. I mean, of course, I learned by playing as well, like many people did. So before my first world championship, I played online on an old German platform called Brettspielwelt, which I think still exists actually. The championship itself, the World Championship in 2013, that I ended up participating, was a major learning experience because that was the first time I encountered many strong opponents in one day, like at really high concentration, and it changes things significantly. So, my main advice to aspiring players, in addition to the advice that I've been giving in videos, is to play with strong players. Even one game with a strong player, especially somebody who's significantly stronger than yourself, can teach you a lot, especially if you see a move that surprises you. Then you can stop and ask yourself, okay, why did my opponent play this? What were they trying to achieve? And you can just simply learn from your stronger opponents. So that would be my main advice.
Uh, Counting tiles, not at the end of the game, but from the beginning, is that a talent, skill, or ability? Is a memory exercise can be trained? Is a mnemonic trick everyone can control and easy to learn?
Good question. Well, I wouldn't say that counting tiles requires any extraordinary talent or anything. It is certainly a skill that needs to be developed because you need it for the game, but it also improves naturally when you develop a deeper understanding of the game, of standard game situations. The more subtleties and details of the game you notice, the more significant each type of tile becomes. And it is easier to remember significant events than just random events. So, for example, when you get a road tile, and when it's not just another useless road, as many players like to say, but when it's curve number 7, which leaves us with only 2 curves, which makes it less profitable to start a ring road in the future because the curves constitute half of my available field connection tiles. And so this kind of logic, then the number of curves becomes so important that it's impossible to forget. And the fact is, with every tile drawn, the game situation changes a little bit. And if you understand how the game situation changes because of each drawn tile, it becomes much easier to remember which tiles are drawn because every tile becomes more significant.
It's true. What's the most important thing? Counting tiles, ability, and creativity, tactics, and strategic based on our experience of the game to be successful on Carcassonne?
Well, I guess a combination of these things above, as well as many other things. But I'd like to address one of those. So, counting tiles, it's something that many players talk about, right? And it is important, but the importance of counting tiles is often overstated. So far more important is to be able to use the information about remaining tiles to your benefit. Counting tiles is not enough. It's like a question of what you do with this. And achieving this requires a varied set of skills, two of which I'd say are paramount. The first one is spatial thinking. So you need to predict how the landscape will develop. Let's say if you drop a field meeple, well, how could this little field look like 20 or 30 tiles from now? Does it have many connection spots? How many cities are likely to be there? Are there any chances that this field will get blocked and encircled? And so on. The second skill is prioritization. So for example, how does this city contribute to my win condition? Do I try to block an opponent's city, or do I connect to it? Or do I ignore it altogether and just take 4 quick points? So this kind of prioritization, deciding what's essential, it's something that comes with experience, but you can also learn it by analyzing games and solving puzzles.
There are great players of Carcassonne around the world. Do you know about one of them isn't on BGA?
Oh, that's a very good question. Let me think about it for a bit, and probably my immediate answer has to be no, because I think we're past a certain tipping point now. Nearly everyone whom I've ever played in person now has a BGA account. New talents who discover Carcassonne from real-life board game nights or tournaments tend to eventually join BGA, because in order to become like really a top player, you need to practice playing against top players. So if you join the platform where the top players play, you're most likely to achieve this. As a result, the platform has more strong players, and this fact attracts more strong players to the platform, and so on and so on. So it's a snowball effect.
Name some of those nicks of the best players on BGA by your point of view.
So I have to say, of course, Takafumi Mochizuki of Japan, with the screen name Pinjitron, along with several of his compatriots. I mean, Japan has just so many strong players. Also, Roman Stahl of Germany, Nocibo, I'd say is by far the strongest player in Germany and one of the strongest players on BGA, also very interesting to play against. And Melvin Quaresma of Brazil, MGQ Quaresma with the screen name, whom I'm sure many of you know, and I think you've even heard him on this podcast already.
Yes.
Yeah. So these are the names that first come to mind. But I'm also now seeing more new players rated in the upper 700s and lower 800s, whom I'm not familiar with. So I've studied games by the player with the screen name Karkabender from Germany, and the screen name Rabbit Train from Japan, who had high places in Arena and also is now over 800 rated, or at least recently was. And I found those games very interesting, especially the style of Rabbit Train, because he really brought something new to the game. He has like a very interesting style where he, for half of the game, almost ignores fields completely, and then manages to either win without fields or join to those fields at the last moment. But he just uses those meeples, extra meeples, to score points in other ways during the game. So I find his games quite interesting, but I've barely played games against either of these players. Of course, something that I'm looking to do in the future.
In your opinion, who is the player with the very pure Polish game style?
Well, that depends what you mean by polished. I'd say, well, I've seen everybody make mistakes, but probably Takafumi Mochizuki, whom we've already mentioned, is the one whom I find most precise, because for two reasons. He shows an extraordinary ability of adjusting his style to the need of situation, and he also and making just simply quick tactical calculations.
In what ways do you think our their BGA could be more efficient?
Well, several things to benefit Carcassonne players. One is custom time control options. So the time formats is in the usual games is maybe not ideal, because in-person tournaments you're just giving a chess clock for usually 20 minutes per game, and then it's the same time control as in chess, and it's not always possible on BGA. But so I'm happy that the organizers of the World Team Carcassonne Online Championships 2002 have found a workaround by creating these mini tournaments, which allow 25.5 minutes per player, I think. But there should be easier ways. So chess websites allow custom time controls, and so should either other mind sports, Carcassonne included. So that's one thing that comes in mind. Another one is that I think many in the competitive Carcassonne community are yearning for are proper notifications for discarded tiles. Because like if let's say a tile, usually the big city tile, is discarded, then just this very small message appears in the log, whereas in reality it would need to take like the entire screen. It needs to be really obvious, because any discarded tile influences the game significantly.
Mhm. Well, BGA generates an ELO classification. What the differences between solid expert and master players?
Well, between these categories, I'd say the main difference is psychological. So, master just sounds nice. It's a nice, shiny label to wear. But there are also some practical differences between the categories. So, it seems to me that it is around the 700 ELO mark, so the threshold for master on BGA, that I start seeing a spike in the depth of understanding of the game and a more cutthroat approach to the game. So players at that level tend to aim to fight with every tile, and they view Carcassonne clearly for what it is, a zero-sum game. So like every move, if I just get 1 point for myself, or if I make my opponent lose 1 point, the value of these two moves is exactly the same. And it's not obvious from a psychological standpoint. So really good players need to cross this threshold and kind of understand the zero-sum nature of Carcassonne, of competitive Carcassonne, with all their essence, maybe. And of course, one needs to remember that Carcassonne is a game with variance, so the ELO ratings, will fluctuate more than in, say, chess. So, like, the ELOs are not always precise, because they might reflect some recent success or recent misfortunes. But it does show a lot as well, because one needs to remember what is behind the ELO system. It is designed to represent the winning chances of each side before the game. So, let's say 100 ELO points advantage. For example, if I have like 700, my opponent has 600. It translates to a 65% chance of winning before the game. A 200-point advantage is a 75% chance of winning. A 500-point advantage shows 95% chance of winning. So thus, a master rates at 800, and there's several plays like this. is expected to win against what BGA classifies as a strong player, somebody who's rated 300, 19 out of 20 times. So that's 95%. And this is why these high ratings are just so difficult to maintain. So if somebody is like really high rated, that definitely means something.
I give you a situation. Someone going to play a face-to-face final. What advice would you give to him?
Well, first of all, congratulations on reaching the final. Enjoy the game. You've guaranteed yourself at least second place, but of course, go for first. Study your opponents. That's something that I always do when I can. And then after you've studied your opponent, then go for positions that they don't like, or go for positions that they're not so comfortable at whenever possible. So let's say if they don't like big fields, and many top players absolutely hate big fields, I'll show you I'll share the secret with you. So just take a city splitter tile and start a huge field. Or let's say if they like big fields, then just avoid big field fights. So you can do so by starting every city on a new small field to dry out the game. Other than these small things, just play your game really. If you made it to the final, then you've probably done something right. And of course, enjoy the process.
A different question. What means this podcast for you?
Well, I always like to chat about competitive Carcassonne, and I'm happy to see that more and more resources and opportunities appear not only at an international level, but also at national and regional levels, such as your podcast, mainly for Spanish speaking players. Yeah, by the way, um, lo siento que no puedo hacer toda la conversación en español, pero espero que podemos hacerlo la próxima vez. Yeah.
Okay. Short answers for you. Your favorite tile?
City road, road, road. So like city cap with the crossroads, because there's always lots of options and it requires skill to use. Do you take 2 points for a road? Do you take 4 points for a city? Do you start a new road? Do you start a new city? Do you block? Do you join? Do you turn it that way? Do you drop a field? There's like always many options, and that's one of those tiles where it's actually separates the skilled players from maybe players who are not so skilled.
It's true. What expansion of Carcassonne do you prefer?
So last time when I had an interview with Carcassonne Brazil, I answered the Phantom meeples to this question because I'm generally a greedy player who likes taking a lot of points, a lot of quick points in particular. And if you know the Phantom, it's just a little meeple that allows you to place 2 meeples in one move. So maybe take a bit of extra quick points, and of course my greed. It's very appealing to my greed. But recently, I played for the first time the expansion with the Abbot and the Flower Beds, and yeah, has to be my favorite now because more monasteries. Yeah, well, because Flower Beds are like monasteries and Abbot is like another monk, really. Yeah, so lots of monasteries. What's not to like?
One game on BGA you like?
Well, Carcassonne, obviously, but other than Carcassonne, Can't Stop. I've played quite a few of those. It's really perfect for challenging one's perception of risk and reward. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Another game you like out of BGA catalog?
I think there's several. So the 2 main ones, even though it will be a cliche answer, but that will be Catan, the other classic. I like it a lot, but also Citadels by Bruno Faidutti, especially Citadels 1-on-1 with the rule modification that my friend made up, and so which actually allows playing citadels competitively as well.
Alexey, have you visited the city of Carcassonne?
Unfortunately, not yet, and to be honest, I haven't even been to France, but this will change someday, of course.
Uh, Captain, Captain of Latvia, like these training sessions among teams, it could be possible a friendly match Latvia versus Spain.
I'd love that. Yeah, to be honest, I'm having like a little bit of difficulties gathering everybody on a team, but I'm pretty sure we'll manage to do that. And yes, I'd love us some friendly match.
Okay, I give you our nickname or our captain nickname is Valle 13. VALLE13. I send you the name, okay?
Yeah, thank you. Please do.
Alexei, it was a pleasure for me. You have been on Meeple Podcast tonight.
Yes, Joaquin, thank you. Same for me. Gracias para invitarme.
Okay, gracias a ti. Thanks to the audience for listening. Remember to watch Alexei's LV YouTube channel if you want to improve your Carcassonne game level. See you in the following episode of Meeple Podcast. Bye bye.